in and of itself is some sort of a victory here.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And this would really be the biggest victory since the Dobbs decision, and we had a ton of states enact pro-life laws. This would be huge for the pro-life movement. It's really the next big step in the long-term effort to finally end abortion someday. And so we look at the money that President Trump cut off from Planned Parenthood, at least temporarily. He froze some Title X funding because of DEI reasons to Planned Parenthood. And since then, we've seen a number of Planned Parenthoods that have closed because of that or have said that they will close. And that's like, 20-some million dollars. We're talking about $529 million. And Planned Parenthood says they're going to close 200 facilities if this gets through in the One Big Beautiful Bill. So this is huge. This could really be the blow to take down Planned Parenthood.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Kelsey, tell us more about your website and how we can read more about the work of your group.
Yeah, go to sbaprolife.org. You can check us out there. You can also read the latest news on the defunding effort and all other things that we're working on in the pro-life movement. We also have a podcast called Abortion Exposed in America, and you can check that out. We've got a season out now exposing some things in Planned Parenthood.
Excellent. Kelsey Pritchard, thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks. God bless.
Absolutely. Well, another option here that I want to float this out there because we need to be thinking about multiple avenues here for clawing back funding of abortion providers. And I say abortion providers because, folks, I don't like singling out Planned Parenthood. Yes, they're the big bad actor. They're the largest abortion provider in the country. I get it. But I don't like giving the left fodder to make it look like we're just targeting one entity, okay? Because they can do a rebrand tomorrow, and then all of a sudden it's not Planned Parenthood anymore, it's some other entity, and we're having to recreate all of the messaging on this, okay? So it's abortion providers, any entity that provides abortions. Another route that the Trump administration needs to look at, if they haven't already, is I think that the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, that is a federal government entity under HHS, I think there needs to be a federal investigation into how the Medicaid reimbursements have been distributed to abortion providers, and is any of that money violating the Hyde Amendment? Because the line here is very thin, okay? What I'm talking about is the money that goes to quote-unquote non-abortion services through abortion providers, and then the abortion services and how that billing works. There is I can almost guarantee you some serious overlap here. And there's probably violations of the Hyde Amendment. If this were to be looked into and investigated, then I would almost guarantee you're going to find that they have not been abiding by the Hyde Amendment. Or if they have, they've been using loopholes. And this is all under President Trump's authority. And this is under the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. They're the ones that facilitate Medicaid with the states. They have the authority to investigate. It's not criminal, at least the evidence doesn't suggest that right now. So this isn't probably a DOJ thing. This is probably a Medicaid thing that needs to be investigated. And what you'll find, and this report can be very helpful in shifting public perception here, but if you find that without the federal government subsidizing of abortion providers through Medicaid reimbursements, there is no mega Planned Parenthood. Well, we're de facto subsidizing and supporting abortion, despite the Hyde Amendment. That's the problem here, is we're propping up the abortion providers. We'll be back.
David, the son of Jesse, just an ordinary giant slayer. My name is Abraham Hamilton III, and this is the Hamilton Minute. David's battle with Goliath is an epic drama where the little boy stands in God's power to conquer the Philistine giant. David didn't awaken that morning expecting to slay a giant. He didn't stroll in with an entourage after a rugged mountain range training camp like Rocky and Rocky IV. He was just a regular kid bringing his brother's lunch, but fully confident in God's immeasurable power. Though he saw Goliath, David never acknowledged him as a giant, saying, "Who is this uncircumcised Philistine who dared defy the Lord of hosts?" When regular people are fully persuaded, fully confident in God's power, giants fall.
Listen each weekday from 5 to 6 p.m. Central for the Hamilton Corner with Abraham Hamilton III, Public Policy Analyst for the American Family Association. Jesus' final words to his disciples were to go into all the world and teach the gospel, making disciples of all nations. For more than 27 years, Tomorrow Clubs International has faithfully answered that call by partnering with local churches in some of the world's poorest nations. Here's a report from a team leader.
When children learn to follow Jesus, they become disciple makers, influencing their families and friends. The gospel then overflows into the community, bringing repentance, reconciliation, church growth, and even reduction in crime and substance abuse.
More than 500,000 children have learned to follow Jesus through Tomorrow Clubs. Kids also learn practical life skills such as cooking, woodworking, and the English language, preparing them for a brighter future. To learn more about the life-changing work of Tomorrow Clubs International, go to tomorrowclubs.org. That's tomorrowclubs.org. All gifts are tax deductible.
We're going to be going back to the Holy Land in March of 2026. Hello, I'm Tim Wildman, President of American Family Association and American Family Radio. We've got trips planned to the Holy Land and also to Greece on a tour we call the Footsteps of Paul. Both of those are in March of 2026. You can do both, or you can do one or the other. You can find out all the information by going to wildmangroup.com, WILDMON group.com, and check out the itinerary, the costs, and everything. We're going to be going to the Jordan River, the Sea of Galilee, the holy city of Jerusalem. We're going to Bethlehem. There's just so much to see in Israel. And then in Greece, it's tracking the footsteps of St. Paul. So again, for more information on these March 2026 tours, go to wildmangroup.com, WILDMON group.com.
At the Core podcasts are available at AFR.net. Now, back to At the Core on American Family Radio.
Welcome back to The Core. Last segment we had on Kelsey Pritchard with Susan B. Anthony, Pro-Life America, talking about defunding abortion providers. And of course, the big bad actor there is Planned Parenthood. Most people know about them. But there's others as well, abortion providers, some more regional or state abortion providers that are receiving federal money as well. And so this is going to be an interesting test in the Senate to see if this will hold in the legislation. And we're actually going to talk pretty extensively here in a few minutes on this legislation, on the growing debt, and what to do with the debt and with the spending and the tax cuts coming up that's in the Senate right now. Before I do that, I want to mention a few events. Our Activate Summit's next week, and of course registration is closed, so we look forward to seeing everyone there that has registered, and we'll be there next week at the Activate Summit. We'll be looking forward to seeing you. A couple more events. We do have the AFA at the Ark coming up at the end of October. We're not full, but we're getting close. We're getting pretty close. So if you wait probably more than a couple more weeks, you're going to miss that window of opportunity there for the Ark encounter and the Creation Museum. We'll have some special sessions back at the hotel as well during that time. That's late October, the 30th and the 31st. The weekend with AFA, this is going to be our first ever weekend with AFA here in our town of our national headquarters, Tupelo, Mississippi, October 2nd through the 4th. That's the 1st of October, weekend with AFA. We're going to have some pretty good speakers coming in. Jerry Boyer with Boyer Research. Jerry's been on my show a couple of times. He and I work together on shareholder engagement. He'll be here with us. We'll have Tim Barton, Jenna Ellis, and others coming to visit with us in Tupelo with a weekend with AFA. And both of those events, you can find more over at afa.net/events, afa.net/ events. The last thing I want to mention before we jump back into the news is our 10 Commandments speech challenge. I did tease this a little bit in recent weeks, and we're going to have on Pastor Joseph Parker on Friday to talk about this extensively, but this is a great challenge for young people, for students to participate in, and we'll send some happies as well for just participation. And then, of course, we've got some pretty big gifts that we're going to give for those who actually win the challenge. But this is specifically for children and youth age 7 to 17. They are being asked to write and present on video a 3 to 5 minute speech on the topic of the first commandment. What is the first commandment? You shall have no other gods before me. Participants may receive assistance from a parent or a sibling to write, record, and submit the speech. So must make it a family project, and speeches must be submitted by the end of June. June 30th is the cutoff for this challenge. Anyone who participates, they'll get a 10 Commandments t-shirt, bookmark, and a coupon code for the AFA Resource Center. So we look forward to all the folks that are going to participate in that. Just simply go to afr.net/10 commandments. 10 is spelled out. afr.net/10 commandments. All right. The one big beautiful bill, that's what President Trump's been calling it, and I got to give it to him from a marketing standpoint. It works pretty good, and that's what everybody else is calling it. So he made a good move on the branding for the legislation. In technical terms, it's a budget reconciliation package. It can be done once a year, and all it needs is a simple majority to vote to pass in the House and the Senate. That's what makes it attractive for the ruling party, is that they don't need the other party to vote for it. This is a Republican-only bill, if you will. And so it's passed the House, and there's a lot going on here, okay? But let me just give you some highlights of what's in the legislation. There is funding for enhanced border security, including the wall, all right? That's in the legislation. There is the president's tax cuts, the president's renewal of his tax cuts from 2017, and a couple of the smaller provisions as well. But the problem that people are having with this is really on the spending side, all right? There's not any Republicans that I'm reading that have any problem with funding the border, or funding border security, or renewing the tax cuts. That there's pretty much zero opposition to that. Where the concerns begin to arise is with the spending levels, all right? And remember, President Trump was elected partially because of the promise to cut spending. Now, let's give a caveat here, in all honesty. President Trump is not a Tea Party conservative. He never has claimed to be, okay? So President Trump is not Rand Paul. President Trump is not Thomas Massie from a fiscal worldview standpoint, all right? So it's not as if President Trump is not doing what he said he would do, or misled the voters, or isn't keeping his campaign promise. President Trump, even in his last term, he was a spender, right? Now he thinks we don't need to spend money in certain areas, but like the Green New Deal, but instead we'll spend it somewhere else, all right? So that needs to be stated, because in all fairness, that needs to be stated. The problem is it doesn't matter whether President Trump wants spending cuts or not. We have to have it, all right? This is purely a national interest thing. And I think President Trump would agree that this debt is unsustainable. And he said as such during the campaign. He's probably said as such since he's been sworn in. The debt and deficit levels are simply unsustainable. And that's not a partisan thing. This is not a you got to be an economist to figure this out thing. This is like economics 101. The level of debt that we're in as a nation And the level of deficit that we are operating under is unsustainable. And nobody can dispute that, all right? Now, here's where disagreement comes. What does unsustainable mean, right? Does that mean that it's going to be apocalyptic and next year we're going to be in a Great Depression? What exactly does it mean to say that this level of debt is unsustainable? Well, I can't answer that in honesty, exactly how this plays out. But what I can say with confidence is it's not going to play out good, all right? And I can give you kind of an extreme example, and then I can give you a more subtle example of how this plays out. But either way, it's not good. Okay, either way, it's not good. All right, here's the extreme, and then I'll give you the subtle, and then we'll shift to some clips and talk about the specifics of the legislation. The extreme case is what you hear from your Ray Dalios and others that predict some sort of economic calamity. All right, and Ray Dalio, he goes back and forth on how apocalyptic it is, but others, the end of the world, Great Depression, we're going to be all eating rice and beans in food lines. America's not the reserve currency. You get the point. And we all, stock market dropped 70%, and we're all on unemployment, and we have to rebuild. All right, that's kind of the apocalyptic viewpoint. This is kind of the proper viewpoint, right? Let me stash up my gold bars, food and water, self-sufficiency. That's kind of the mindset there. That's the worst case scenario play out of the continuing down this path of debt. And I don't personally think it will get there. I think the downward spiral is going to look a little bit different. It's going to be a little more subtle. But when we get to the other side of it, we're all going to look back going, that was terrible. What were we thinking? Why didn't we do anything? This is a disaster, okay? The more subtle likely scenario, once again, this is purely my opinion, is this slow but steady degrading of the middle class. And this isn't theory, like the apocalyptic scenario is theory. This right here that I'm talking about is actually happening now. All right, so this isn't what I think might happen in the future. This is what's happening and has been happening over the last 3 to 5 years at a rapid pace. Really, it's been happening over the last 20 years at a more slow pace. And that is the deterioration of the middle class. And if you want to look somewhere to figure out, well, what's this look like? California, all right? California is the state of haves and the have-nots, all right? You go to California, and by and large, it doesn't have a middle class. Now, that's not technically true. They have a middle class, but the middle class is shrinking, okay? And the point is that the upper class and the wealthy, the so-called wealthy, I know that's subjective, but the people in the upper percentile of income, they begin accumulating a lot of the wealth, and then the people in the middle and the lower income become poorer and poorer. All right, that's how it works. That's how California is today. Obviously, that's not good because you've got a massive segment of your population that is becoming worse off and worse off and worse off. And I think that's the likely scenario. And you see that with inflation. With inflation, your average person's dollar that they earn working becomes less and less valuable. You can do less and less with it. The higher income class of people, the upper percentile, they've got the whole system figured out. And this is not a bash the wealthy, being rich is evil. This is not a socialist type viewpoint that I'm expressing here. I'm just telling you this is how it works, okay? This is how the world works. The wealthier are the upper class of our income society. They have a way more complex financial apparatus. All right, they're invested in hard assets that appreciate, i.e., real estate, and maybe gold and other things that over time just naturally appreciate. They don't lose value. And then they're in the markets, they're in equities, they're in bonds, they've got savings, they've got high yield savings account, they have multiple homes, so they've got a lot of assets that have appreciated. They probably have some of it paid off, and so when you add all that together, they're not going to be suffering here with this high debt, rising inflation, chipping away at the middle class, making the dollar less powerful. The upper to middle class, or the upper class rather, they're not the ones you need to worry about here in this rising debt, rising deficit, out of control inflation